better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could
Hello, Matt.
Howdy, Rob. Oh, we've got this is the episode I like to call the Dungeon Master's Delights.
This is the Dungeon Master's Delight.
This is them.
We get to talk about some of our favorite things. A few of them.
Cue the song in your head,
because we can't play it on the podcast. But you know the song.
Yeah, we know you know the song we're talking about. You know the one we're talking about. Like some of our favorite. Okay, we've been really abstract these last 2 episodes with like feelings and activities. What about like stuff and numbers and words and things people have made?
That's right. We talk a lot about game systems, and we cover some campaign settings when we can. But we have played and run a bunch of these games, so we're going to talk about the concrete, the nuts and bolts, the specifics of what we've loved, what our favorite things are, campaigns, settings, cities. The good stuff, the kinds of things that you can really like sink your teeth into, and what we've enjoyed, what our favorites are from our many years of game mastering. And we've got a lot to cover here.
This is great in that there's an intense joy to all of the fictional creations that accompany role-playing games, or in some types of systems are like inexorably like wrapped up in the game itself. You can't have one without the other. But oftentimes, there's all sorts of, hey, here's some rules, and then here's a really cool place that we added. And so we're just going to share some of those. And they're like such a joy to read, because sometimes novel or a movie, if you put like cool stuff in there, you mostly want it to get resolved, or it's so vague it's just in the background, right?
Yeah.
Like what's that weird alien in the background there? He's there to add color to the scene.
That's right.
But in a role-playing game, you get to like dive in and explore all these things, and these fictional worlds and places and creations are all made not to be resolved by the author, but be resolved by you. And that it's fun to read about fictional places that like you get to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great point, Matt, because listen, when you get the backstory of the alien who got his arm chopped off in the cantina in Star Wars A New Hope, in Tales from Jabba's Palace, that's a bad thing. That's not good.
What was his backstory? The guy who goes...
I've already forgotten. I do remember that he got his own story. It wasn't very good, so I don't remember. The point is, that's not good. But
hundreds of our listeners are screaming right now. They're like, I know exactly what happened with that arm.
Write in and tell me why I'm wrong.
Yes.
The thing is that a campaign book or a setting book or a campaign is all guys who got their arms cut off. And it's great because it's just, here's this backstory of this random guy. You put him in the story where you want, or you sort of like file him away to, a future place. But once you've experienced it in like an existing story, it's not so good to go back and find the backstory. But that's what's so much fun about these books, especially when they're well written and well thought out.
Worlds filled with Pondo Babas.
That's right. Thank you for looking it up. I was like, it was on the. I wasn't gonna look it up. Pondo Baba. That's right.
Everything is Pondo Baba, and
everything is Pondo Baba. Everything is Babu Frick. Everything is Kit Fisto.
He doesn't like you either. Yeah. Okay. Where do we want to start? I'll start. I'll start with one we haven't talked about on the show, so we can keep it brief. But we'll one day do a full episode on it. And Rob, I want to talk to you about creation.
Ooh, tell me about creation.
Creation.
I'm very vaguely familiar with the concept.
Creation is, Webster's defines creation as the act of fabrication. Creation is the campaign setting for the Exalted role-playing game. Now,
We have not talked about Exalted at length on
Well,
the show. We
there's
will
a
soon.
reason for that, Rob. There are many systems out there, and Rob and I can handle most of them, but there are some systems that are so complicated in their like crazy cool anime wuxia like moves and magic powers that like I cannot figure out like how it works. But the campaign setting has just been very inspirational, and it's a delight to read about. It's a delight to read about like creation, be like, oh, this is a really cool thing. It's like a world that's like big and flat, and then the edges are like reality just ends, and there's weird shit out there. The fairy folk, the elves, and they're not good. They want creation to not exist, and at the center of it is this massive bureaucratic corrupt empire of dragon-blooded people who are always hunting your heroes, who are either going to save or destroy the world. There's some like basic tropes that are maybe like in less talented hands would be not interesting. There's like a pole of water, fire, earth, air, like, and so there's like fireland and stuff. But the details that are filled in about those places are all just like, the city of Lookshy, the thieves city. It's so cool. So it's a really lovely campaign setting.
I'm not as familiar with it as Matt is. In fact, I'm only like barely familiar with it. But I do know that Exalted inspires a great deal of passion and enthusiasm among its fans. And it is very cool in visuals and description. And we ought to talk about it.
The reason for that is one, because there's a bunch of people who just like the kind of like storyteller system. Two, there's a bunch of people who want like in a broadly Eastern and non-Tolkien inspired fantasy story. People love their like pop culture interpretations of this through like anime. People want to, what I'm saying, Rob, is people want to have a big sword and like glow and hit something.
Listen,
like a ridiculously, when I said big sword, you're thinking like a sword that's large. No, like a sword that's too big, even
too big. This is what people loved about Draw Steel. They was like, what if everything was everything was like stupidly large. But yeah, Exalted did it first.
With all of those things aside, the thing that is, I think, actually really good for everyone is to read like about the background of it. Like it's got such an interesting interpretation of the gods. Like there are these big gods and they're important, but they're doing a thing that we can't really understand, and it's just kind of a Pondo Baba for us all to play with. What is going on with those? And then there are all these like lesser kind of terrestrial gods that make up the celestial bureaucracy, and they're doing things we can't understand, but they're more like humans. They get their feelings hurt and stuff like that, and it's super cool.
That sounds great. Consider us planning to talk about creation at length in the future. In thinking about this, I got to go back to one that we have talked about before, and I'm sorry to retread, but I have just been thinking that I've had many great joys, but I really like
I am the greatest joy of your life. Is that what you're gonna say?
That's exactly what I was gonna say. That's precisely what I was gonna say. After my dear friend Matt.
Yes.
My one of my greatest joys in being a game master has been playing and running Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I have now run it 2.5 times, and the more time that passes, the more I really feel like it is the perfect Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Now, you are still playing a Dungeons and Dragons game, and listeners may be surprised to hear that this is among my favorites, but given that is what the people still want much of the time, the time that I spent running that for my players who really wanted D&D, I had the most fun in Forgotten Realms, the most fun in Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's a really good campaign because it's not too long. It's varied. It has lots of characters. Jarlaxle Bainra and the Castellanters and Xanathar and all these interesting people with interesting motivations and big personalities. And if you are, like many of our listeners, still running Dungeons and Dragons, your players still want that D&D 5e experience, I think the best experience that of all the books that we have read is Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I think that it hits all of like the high points of D&D. It has enough social stuff. It hits the tone just right. Waterdeep is a really fun city to sort of bounce around in.
Yeah.
Your
Like
players
I
get a
haven't
tavern.
It's so cool. They get something, and I read the campaign with you, reviewed it with you, have never played or run Waterdeep Dragon Heist, but I have taken my players to the city of Waterdeep. And I think that's like one of the strengths of our beloved City of Splendors is if your players know the other Sword Coast locations from popular video games, Icewind Dale, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter, there's one that's like cooler and more interesting than all of them. And it's like untouched by the video games. And it's Waterdeep. The Masked Lords, Rob. The like under or Skullport. Like there's
That's
just so many cool
Undermountain
places there.
And this is also just sort of about the campaign Dragon Heist itself. Is it comes with the adventure and a gazetteer. It's a brief gazetteer, but what I love about it is it has just enough information for you to work with to build out Waterdeep, and then the campaign lets you become intimately familiar with one street where your players get their tavern. This is such a great way to experience a city, to play a game. I agree with Matt. I think Waterdeep is one of the more fun Forgotten Realms cities. I think it's got a lot going on. It's really easy to transition from Dragon Heist to something like Dungeon of the Mad Mage or Descent to Avernus. Like if your players love their characters and they want to keep going, it's a really great springboard for a whole bunch of other adventures.
It's also a great campaign to read if you want inspiration, because it's got all these options and NPCs that you may not even use. Well, just like we said in our review, it has some like structural issues that can be fixed. The motivation and the way the thing plays out, once those are fixed, are like perfect, especially for like, I don't know, for new groups of people who just want to do this. And the great thing about Waterdeep, right, is you might say, and you wouldn't be wrong with this intuition, like, wouldn't it a smaller city be easier to manage? Yes, a small city is much easier to manage. And you might say, wouldn't a city with like a little less like law and order and like important figures be easier? And yes, that's true. But the cool thing about Waterdeep is that it's so big, like, you know, you can kind of you can sweep away some of those problems. And there's never, you know, there's no reason why you couldn't run an entire 20 level campaign, 10-year campaign in Waterdeep, because it's just that big. And there's just been so much written about it in other things. You can always pull to some older book if you want some more details for inspiration.
Yeah. That it does run into the or potentially run into the problem that we talk about all the time with Forgotten Realms. You know, you've got your big names kicking around, Laeral, Silverhand, and all the big wizards, Kelvin, Blackstaff, but there's so much going on in Waterdeep that it feels like it makes sense that the big guys aren't paying attention to what you're dealing with. It's loosely held enough, and it's the type of structure that the city has and the way that it's written. It feels like it makes sense for your players to be adventuring there and for them to be not stepping on the toes of the big names in the Forgotten Realms. This is one of the things that I am
the thing is
on.
Because of the like structure, the players can be criminals or weird people opposed to them, and then they can be like a mass lord and no one knows who they are.
That's right.
And it's
right.
Cool.
It's cool. This is the thing I've been reflecting on and thinking about this, is that the best cities, the best settings have just enough for you to set your players loose and let them kind of bounce around, but don't have so much structure that you're having to constantly check the book to make sure that you're not I don't know, overwriting canon or getting something wrong. And that is a delicate balance. Like I think a lot of campaign books, a lot of cities try to do this and don't succeed. I think Waterdeep does it really well. I think Waterdeep has a lot for you to work with and room for your players to play in without running into any of those problems. And like Matt said, there's decades of information about Waterdeep, so you can always dig deeper if your players want to spend time there. So I think we talked about the flaws. You got to do a little bit of work to fix some of the structural issues, but in general, Dragon Heist, in terms of tone and experience and just the type of campaign that you want to have in Dungeons and Dragons, is still for me the best fit of anything that we've read for 5th edition. And even though I am not so keen on running D&D these days, I would probably run Waterdeep again. I enjoyed it that much.
Third time?
A third time.
Third and a half time?
Third and a half time.
Yeah,
it's different every time. Listen,
yeah.
I'm a sucker for a randomly generated.
The thing worked on you.
It worked on me. There, I could get a different villain this time. Who knows?
I think if you're looking for a big city adventure, it's really the authors, the many authors of the Forgotten Realms have worked very hard to make Waterdeep the ultimate adventuring location in a big city. Look, there's a mega dungeon under it. Yep. Look, there's a crime city kind of next to it, also under it. There's the lords wear masks.
There's nearby monsters to slay. There's politics to scheme. There's things to
wealthy
steal.
People
to
steal.
Anything you want, you can find in Waterdeep when it comes to adventuring.
Yeah. Let me see. Let me do another C. Let's get out of fantasy, Rob.
Yeah.
I guess there's always, when it comes to Shadowrun and Cyberpunk, there's 3 to choose from. Maybe we could talk about all 3. And of course, I'm talking about Shadowrun's Seattle, Shadowrun's Denver. Those are the only 2 cities worth it.
They're the only ones.
There's also Berlin, but I'm not reading those books.
Yeah,
and then, of course, there's Night City. Too many DJs.
Yeah.
Night City, not enough DJs. There's an opportunity for it.
Night City needs more DJs. Yeah, these are. I do love the Shadowrun setting, and I do love Shadowrun's Seattle. It is a very, very rich and detailed and deep setting, and I think that also comes from
all cyberpunk cities.
Decades
too many
of writing about
all of these have decades, and all like cyberpunk city or settings, right? Rise and fall. Like, who cares what's going on in the rest of the world, right? Yeah, sometimes it's good. Sometimes I would say for some Shadowrun things, very silly. But Shadowrun is very silly.
It's very silly. We love it anyway.
As long as the cities are cool and interesting, and they are, then it works.
Listen, William Gibson and then
Neil Stephenson,
and Ridley Scott understood intimately that Cyberpunk is about a cool city. It is about a city. It's also about samurai swords and about jackets and about having, implants in your brain. But it's really about cool cities, and that's why every Cyberpunk campaign and system worth its salt is built around at least one cool city. And
Night City is surprisingly walkable. Seattle, Denver, or Shadowrun Denver, not so much.
You can. It's got public transit, I think, even, which is
this is the 15-minute city they've been warning about.
It is.
This is how you get your megacorps in your games. This is the 15-minute city comes first. No, I think any of the setting books for any of these 3 cities, and I think you're going to see some, at least on my flip throughs, you're going to see a lot of similarities and repetition.
Yeah.
There's an evil possibly Asian corporation over here.
This
There's
is the evil Asian corporation. This is the evil Russian corporation. This is the evil European corporation.
There's a gang over here. There's a weird fast food place. There's in Shadowrun. There's this weird magic ball here. There's this enclave. There are always enclaves in cyberpunk cities.
Yep.
But all three of these, if you want inspiration for running any kind of running game or this sort of dystopian near future, you're gonna find bits and tantalizing delights of information.
Yeah, I really have to recommend, especially Night City. I was tepid on it when I started running Cyberpunk, and I now have come to love Cyberpunk 2077 and Cyberpunk Red, but at the time I was so on it, and all of these have gotten more detail and more love in recent years, and now I think Night City is a really, really rich, great setting. I ran a long Cyberpunk campaign there. It has exactly the things that I described: enough detail to ground you, but enough space for your players to sort of ping pong around and not run into anyone too important, or not mess with the setting in any significant way. And between the game and Cyberpunk Red and Cyberpunk 2020 and all, Pondsmith and his crew are still putting out supplements pretty frequently, and there's so much good information which you can kind of take or leave. It definitely feels like you're encouraged to do some invention on your own. It does not hold itself too seriously or too closely, and it's a classic mega city, and you can imagine what you might find there, and it's great. I love adventuring and running adventures in Night City, and will do so again. I have no interest in I will I might run a Cyberpunk campaign again in the future, or some one shots, but I have no interest in anywhere but Night City, really. I'm like, this is great. This is everything that I need is right here.
Maybe you could slap a different rule system on it, but for the inspiration for the gangs and the way the city works and lays out, and the plot threads that are like left hanging at everything. It's great. Funny story, Rob. I was in San Luis Obispo like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Some friends were like, let's go down to the beach. We can get some seafood. And we went down to the beach, which was 30 minutes away. And then I saw that big rock and I'm like, wait a second. Is this Night City? Is this like sleepy beach town, Morro Bay? Is this the future home of Night City? The residents of Morro Bay did not know what I was talking about, or at least my server didn't. And they have not, it's not like that place in Iowa where they have this sign that's like future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk, right? There is no sign that's like future home of beautiful Night City. They're not proud of it.
That's too bad. They should be proud.
They should be proud.
CD Projekt Red did not reach out to them and be like, hey, heads up.
Heads up, people who are not tabletop role players are going to care about this place all of a sudden. No, I think I think it's something. There is something Pacific Rim and or at least in North America, like West Coastian about cyberpunk, right?
Yeah,
America, the North America has ended. People have moved from east to west, and we are at the end, and this is where things are going to get weird.
Yeah. It's very cyberpunk is a West Coast phenomenon, right? It's because it's where the new stuff is happening, right? You can't you can't have a gigantic pyramid in the center of New York City. It's full of stuff, but you can build one in LA.
You could build one in LA tomorrow.
And if you want to have like big old cyberpunk towers of doom, which you gotta have, that's gonna be it's gonna be LA, it's gonna be Seattle, it's gonna be somewhere on the West Coast. I do like the Night City is like a fake California megacity. I think that's a
Right.
nice idea. Not that it couldn't be LA, but like, yeah, put it in Morro Bay. Why the fuck not?
Yeah,
It's a nice touch.
there's Cal Poly is a great school. It's right by nearby. Yeah. I guess our point with this one is if your sci-fi like juices need recharging and delighting, just crack open any of the many old and new source books for any of the classico TTRPG cyberpunk cities.
Yeah. Yeah. These are so I love these books. I love reading them. The gangs are fun, the locations are fun, the NPCs are fun. Part of this is my just enjoyment of cyberpunk as a concept, but I do think that there is something a little bit fresher and more interesting about the way that most of these are written and what's in them. So these are always a great read.
Yeah. Where do you want to take our dungeon masters to next, Rob?
All right, I'm gonna pivot. Sort of. I'm gonna split the difference between fantasy and cyberpunk, and I'm gonna return us to Invisible Sun, because years on, we've talked about it at length. I have run a campaign in it. It is one of the weirdest books I have ever read. I'm not sure that it is accessible to most people. However, the concept of Invisible Sun and the city of Saturnine, where your spirit people actually live after escaping the shadow, is just like a fascinating place to explore. And there's tons of like really interesting weird NPCs and weird locations, and half of them are going to be entirely unusable for anything else, but the other half are, I think,
but the other half though
are really good ideas, really interesting characters, settings, ideas to mine. Obviously, don't go out and throw $200 at the black cube, but if you can get
buy the PDF of the the setting book. It's like, if you're not sold on this, if you read the the Sandman comics,
yes,
right?
That's such a good example of that,
where there's just like weird fantasy mind, psychic astral landscapes and stuff, and you're like, it'd be cool to have like some part of like whatever I'm running in this or steeped in this, but like I can't just like read these comics. Like I need a setting. This is where you go to, or where I would go to first.
I really do think this is like an incredibly rich and detailed setting, and I intend to do more in it. And like as a system and a setting and a campaign, it is all three of these things. It is really, really well designed. I think I personally have too much ADHD to commit the amount of time and energy that would be required to do what I think is a really, really good job with Invisible Sun. Some people find their thing and they're like, that's my thing. I'm going to put 100% of my knowledge and time into that thing. And that's not me. But for somebody, Invisible Sun is like the perfect campaign for that, because I really believe you could do this forever, and it has it rewards engagement with just like more depth and more complexity and more storytelling. Monty Cook's a lunatic, but I respect this.
He is the respected lunatic. That's not what I'm grading it on. I'm grading on, does it delight me as a dungeon master? Yeah. And I think for like everyone, at least the campaign setting part will delight and like tickle your creative dungeon master brain by reading through it.
Strongly agreed. I think there's a lot to delight and a lot to inspire in Invisible Sun, and I am still borrowing ideas and concepts and characters from the book. It is. I guess I'm hedging because I haven't spent as much time with it as I have with some other systems for obvious reasons, but it remains sort of as an inspiration, very, very close to the top of my list. It is a incredibly rich text, as we like to say.
Okay, enough of that. Back to fantasy. I'm gonna
Back to
since
fantasy.
we've talked about settings, if you want to like read about something that's just like good for everyone as a DM for reading a fantasy saying that will delight you, I'm gonna say Eberron's The Mournland.
Oh yeah.
The reason it's so good, and just a little context, it's a disaster country, a country that's like atomic bombed, cursed, undead, weirdness, things. Is If you read about it, there's so many cool, interesting ruins and monsters and factions there. All that's great, but it's a great example of how to take whatever you're working on and make a weirder, more intense version of that for your players to use as a sandbox when they need to have a really dangerous mission or go really kill something, or something like that. So it's just a great, by reading it, you'll get a great example of, hey, whatever I'm working on, I can create an area over here, a zone, if you will, where things are bad and weird, but it's the same things but weirder and badder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mist, the morning, these are phenomenal campaign tools. There's so much that you can do with that, and Keith Baker, in designing and writing about the Mournland, has left just enough to the imagination that you can kind of really like go wild with it, and it's a great place to start or end a campaign, a great place to send your players when they need a challenge. It is really like it's also like the mystery at the center of everything
Right.
that's going on at Eberron, which is what makes it so compelling. It's great.
Yeah, if you're planning out your campaign, and maybe yours won't look exactly like this, and you're just, I want an example case of how to put a big or campaign sized mystery in my campaign, but make it something that the players can really interact with and investigate and explore slowly over time. The Mournland is such a great example, right? There are people there, weird people, fanatics,
Yep.
magic mutants, living valuable things that are just so
Very
valuable it's
things.
worth risking your life. Giant, fantasy robots, and then
Living
there are whole
spells.
series. It's like, hey, do we want to put a place where is a giant country-sized dungeon in our campaign? Yeah, you if you're playing most fantasy systems, it might be a good idea to do.
It's something that you can modify. I mean, it can be more like the Mist from the movie The Mist.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be specifically what it is in Eberron. Matt, I know the answer to this question. Do you remember City of Heroes?
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember how there were hazard zones that were just like full of bad guys, and one of them was Dark Astoria, which was just covered in fog and full of like really
there was bad magic there.
Bad magic, and that was sort of like that's kind of how I imagine some of like the Mournland, the morning is. You got like a misty, abandoned city full of real bad magic, and that's such a useful idea. There's just magic gone wrong, a gigantic magical environmental disaster. I mean, this idea can be borrowed for any campaign.
I mean,
blame it on any wizard you want.
Blame it on any wizard, any curse, any like fairy creature, any god. It's so perfect for that. Speaking of okay, now that you brought up City of Heroes, I didn't even add this to my list, but if you are one of the dozens sixes couple of listeners who is running a superhero role-playing game.
We know you're out there.
I really had so much fun over a huge portion of my life reading not the Champions role-playing systems mechanics, right? They're fine and they're
okay.
They're very detailed. But the Champions like setting is like, if I cut out 50% of this so it was simpler for just my one campaign, I could create and tweak things. I can create my own superhero world. Rob, firmly believe that the only way to ever run a superhero campaign is to let you and your players make up a bunch of crazy superheroes from scratch. If you want to run like an established thing, if you want to run Marvel or DC, that seems really boring to me.
I mean, this is I also love the Champions setting, and it's super interesting. But like the designers of City of Heroes were smart about this, because they were like, well, players aren't going to want to be superheroes if there's like a bunch of better superheroes, and so they all died. Like all the big superheroes died in a war, like right before the game starts. And like this is how you need to do, I think, a superhero setting. There can be other superheroes and they can be better, but there need to be like not very many, and they need to be either like busy or in stasis or retired or something, right?
Yeah,
because and you and your players need to be the ones who are like making up most of the superheroes who they interact with, because otherwise
they're on trial at the Galactic Council for crimes against something. It's they'll be back one day, but the coalition of
they've been zapped into another dimension by the extra dimensional Z beings to answer for Earth's various crimes, and who knows how long they'll be gone. But yeah, nobody wants to be. I mean, this is why the Marvel games are like never very successful. Is like you either want to play as Spider-Man or you don't want to play at all. And if you're just going to be a TTRPG playing Spider-Man, that's, I don't know, it's not really like a role-playing experience, you know?
Yes. Well, here's the cool thing about the Champions system, which is that it's it at times feels as detailed as something like DC Comics. So there's just like, there's magic superheroes and superheroes from Europe and South America and Canada. And there's more superheroes than you could ever use in a game, and more supervillains and organizations and stuff like that. So the other advantage is most of your players have probably not read the Champions system or the setting. And so if you need inspiration for like building these like super heroic things, it's a great place to go and take these factions and organizations and things. It's not radically different from anything that like DC or Marvel have done. See, like what you want to do if you're running this game is essentially what the guy who wrote the Invincible comics did, is like, I'll just create my own system that's basically like, my hero is Superman plus Spider-Man, and there's another guy who's just like this other hero. It doesn't matter. I've given them all different backstories and motivations and attitudes. It'll be fun. You'll explore the world. That's what you want for your players, where their heroes are the stars of the story. And but in order to do that, you have to come up with a lot of fucking weird shit like that exists in comics. And this is, I think, the best resource to delight your DM brain for that.
Yeah, I've played in a couple superhero games. I've never run one. Probably won't. If I had to, it would be Champions, though. I think Champions has the most.
I'm sorry, I would not run a game in Champions.
Champions
I want to
caution the risk. Champions setting with different rules. Either it'd be built from scratch or it'd be using Champions, because everything else is too inaccessible. I don't care for the others.
I would not even the problem with like Champions, like at this stage, is that it is also too jam packed with like stuff.
Yeah.
So what I am saying, and Rob's advice is good too, is just read it for inspiration for superheroes that are not DC and not Marvel that you can mess around with, and then build your own world, not the Champions world. But if you need inspiration for just like I wish there was just a guidebook to a comic universe. Here is one. It's just there's no comics. Well, they did make some comics, but there's no important comics.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna have a superhero game, you gotta have lots of superheroes. And yeah, I think what Matt said, like what they did in Invincible or in The Boys, is where you just take an obvious superhero or an obvious superhero's powers and then just sort of reskin that guy with a new new personality and a new costume and a new basic ideas. It's really how you want to go, but Champions does some of the work for you, and it's fun to read. It's a fun setting.
Yeah.
A lot going on.
Yeah, it is. There is a lot going on. And it's like, hey, do I need my own kind of like Shield, kind of like the Justice League organization? Oh, here's one that I can tweak for my campaign from Champions. Here's, in fact, several. Pick the one that you want to use. All right, where should we delight next?
My next one, and this is a constant delight, and I hope listeners aren't tired of hearing me talk about it, but I love Duskfall. I love Blades in the Dark, and now that we recently talked to Tim Dene about Blade 68, now that they're coming out with a whole new setting in the same city, in the future, plus we've got deep cuts. It was already like an incredibly rich setting with so many interesting factions and NPCs and locations to work with. Now it's got so much more, and you can sort of like pick and choose where on the timeline you want to play in and borrow back and forth. Tim suggested that there might be some sort of like timey-wimey back and forth nonsense when Blade 68 comes out. We'll have to see how that goes, but like I think it's like for a heist game, for any type of crime game, even for just like a social, we're gangs trying to make our way in the the world. It's such a rich setting. There's so to me, I read it and like instantly just like ideas spring to life. I have so much delight from reading about Duskfall, from reading Blades in the Dark.
It's also unlike some of our other recommendations where we're like read about Waterdeep. There's 1,000 printed pages out there. It's not short, but it's not long. The campaign setting information, and it's
very
chock
doable,
full of really interesting places in really fascinating neighborhoods filled with just bonkers factions that all have magic, flintlock pistols pointed at each other's temples.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the benefits of the last 10 to 15 years of game design innovation, is that when you read a more recent book, you'll notice that the designer is trying to communicate that information to you in in manageable chunks. We do love reading like a big block of text about a person or a location. Love that in Eberron or in Invisible Sun or in any of our classic RPGs. But something like Blades in the Dark has lighter descriptions, but like just as much detail, and you're left to sort of like fill in the blanks, and it means that you can actually read everything that you need to know about Duskfall in a manageable amount of time, rather than having to like scour through hundreds of pages of rich and interesting material. But like, yeah, it is. I do at this point, after having read so many of these, do appreciate something like Blades in the Dark so much. And Duskfall, for me, all the information gives me just enough to spark my imagination and give me ideas for hooks and plots and NPCs and factions and conflicts, but nothing I don't need. It's just the basics.
Yeah, if you're looking for inspiration for just like weird stuff going on both at the like campaign,
Yeah.
like setting level, like reading about the lightning fields. They're weird. Here's actually how they work. The whaling, here's how that connects. Like there's all this like little bits of information for good and fascinating world building that will reward investigative players. But then, the bulk of it is just faction after faction of people that are interesting. They have opinions about different types of player characters and strong opinions and hatreds and love of other factions and things that they want that only whatever type of player character you have can get them. It's a perfect like way to like read and be like, oh, the unseen university. I'm just gonna steal these people for whatever it is I'm prepping for my next couple sessions. I'm delighted by this.
Yes, it's great. So much to work with. So much. So it's so easy to build a campaign or even a single session just from the factions and their relationships to each other. The game makes it so easy for you.
I think you talked about a adventure like module or campaign, so I feel like I have to add one to balance out the scales. And I think if you're looking to I'm not suggesting to read through this whole thing page by page, but instead read the like summaries and the like basic flow of exploration and growth, because I'm going to suggest that everyone, if you want some delights, read Kingmaker by Paizo. So just if you're like, hey, I want a fantasy campaign where I want dungeons and politics and players being invested in something, you can kind of scale this like core concept up and down really well. It's a concept that's older than Kingmaker, and it's also been tried again, but I think this is a really good example of it in a nice package. So if you're like, I just need this like player investment and growth, and I want them to own the thing, read Kingmaker.
We've talked about it multiple times.
Too many times on the show.
Still love it. Listen, many people have tried. I don't know that anybody has done a better city building, nation founding, carving, civilization out of the wilderness adventure than Kingmaker. Many settings, many games have tried. It is a power fantasy that many people, myself included, enjoy playing out. And Kingmaker, you gotta do, I think at this point, it's a little bit of like hacking, a little bit of like pick and choose. Maybe don't engage all the way with the building rules, or maybe do, or maybe change them. But I just don't think that anyone's done this better. I don't think anyone's managed to hit that fantasy quite as well as Paizo did with Kingmaker.
As many of our Patreon subscribers have noted in the Discord, join at patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None. Rob, you've got to start cracking the epic tome that is Stonetop, and we'll see if it can dethrone Kingmaker for this type of play, but actually kind of very different.
We're not like Quinn. That. We don't get advanced copies of things. Like we gotta. I don't even know you can buy
out
Stonetop.
A while ago, I think. I think you buy the PDF a long time ago. Okay. But yeah, no, we did not get an advanced copy of Stonetop. Yeah. If someone wants to send us one, I've only got the PDF.
We'll review it. Yeah.
But
that's the thing. If Stonetop does, that's exactly the point, though. If Stonetop does what it claims to do, that's because that's notable, because Kingmaker is such a pinnacle of the form, and if it were dethroned, that would be quite notable.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a delight if you're thinking about doing this sort of growth and state or city building, power accumulation that is supposed to be a hallmark of certain types of classic Dungeons and Dragons or fantasy RPG play and you need inspiration and delight, check this book out.
Yeah. For my last one, I'm gonna pivot sort of, because I want to talk about Mothership's unconfirmed contact reports. And this is not a
Yeah.
setting or a campaign. What it is, it's basically like a monster manual, but because of the way that Mothership works, what it is it's just a list of scary things and prompts. And I've read some reviews and people didn't all love this. I love this book. This is
Wow.
one of
It's
one
great.
of the like my favorite. It's just like a little like pamphlet. It's not that big, and it's got like 40 horrors and 100 prompts in it, and they range from things like here's an alien, here's a scary fucking alien, to like this is this is a mimetic virus that gets transmitted through um radio transmissions between satellites and turns people into zombies. Like it's every type of like sci-fi hook you can imagine, and this is the type of thing that just ignites my brain. I like read this and I'm like, oh, either I know how to run that or I have an idea that's related to that. I'm gonna like tweak this a little bit and put it in my campaign. This is, if you're running any kind of science fiction game, but especially if you're doing anything Mothership related, sci-fi horror, is really rich. This is so good for ideas, for campaigns, for adventures. I love this book.
Rob, this one is so good. I've used well, I'm planning on using another one, but I've used one of these in my Star Trek game, which is not a horror game. It's cozy. Yeah. My Star Trek game is cozy and happy, and the players almost always, like make the right decision and save the day and all this stuff. But the weirdness of this is just so good. It's so hard to come up, at least for me, with these on your own. And if you need some like just things to noodle on, it's really good.
And they're not all like horrible. Many of them are. Some of them are just weird. and yeah. that's I mean, this is I as a fellow traveler in this space, like it's clear to me that this is the writers of this book are deeply well read and experienced with science fiction as a genre, because they have got every trope and idea you can possibly think of, including some truly off the wall ones. I really love this book. I think it's super useful for any kind of space science fiction campaign, and just full of good ideas. Some you could borrow for fantasy. Some are would actually kind of like make a good, like super weird encounter in something come
that weird like mold. It's a fantasy mold. It's a fantasy. We've got molds and dungeons. That weird virus. It's a spell.
It's a spell. Yeah, I love this book.
Yeah, it's really great for inspiration. Gosh, I mean, we have done whole episodes on a lot of the things we're sharing here, but maybe we should do a whole episode on this.
That would be fun. Yeah. I would happily talk about
it. So I think my recommendation to delight yourself as a DM is a little different, and it was something I was thinking about talking about. But I think we're wrapping up our 400th anniversary episodes here, so I might as well put it out there. There's a lot of D&D history books out there, Rob, and most of them are pretty good in often in very different ways. You could go with huge coffee table book that has descriptions and fun things about 500 different role-playing book systems over the histories. That's delightful. You could read one of the books that's really about the struggles of early TSR, like of Dice and Min. But I think one that I think really delighted me the most is The Elusive Shift by John Peterson. Now, he has some longer history books about the history of role-playing games and war games, but this one is like, here's one like moment/decade in time about how really a bunch of designers and a bunch of people just playing things like came up with what role-playing games could be, how they moved and did not move away from earlier traditions of wargaming. And if you like want to read something where you kind of like understand why so many role-playing games, especially until recently, had all the same kind of mechanics and traditions, it's because this shift, when it happened, was so revolutionary, going from a war game with a referee to a role-playing game with a referee. It left its mark, a mark that lasted decades. And it's also a fun read. It's also much shorter than a lot of the other books. I guess caution, it is a little like academic. I enjoy that. But
my contribution to this is that of the books, of the history books, I think this is the most academic, and I mean that as an endorsement, because I actually think
it's very smart
that this topic warrants it and benefits from it. And John Peterson is not, as far as academics go, he is a good writer. He does not, it's not the most dry thing that you are ever going to read, but it is, be warned. This is it's from MIT Press. The press. This is a academic.
It's from a university
tome.
Press, yes.
But I really do think I agree with Matt. I really like this one, and we should talk about it on the pod at some point.
We should do a Dungeon Master of None book club on it.
We should do it. But this is also my favorite of the histories, and I'm also an academic, so like of course we're gonna like this one. But like I really do think that like that the topic benefits from the level of analysis that John Peterson gives to it, and that's because, and I don't mean this as a criticism to the hard work that other historians and writers have done, but so many of them are just like, and then this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and here's some interesting anecdotes about Gary Gygax and Arneson, and that's useful. But I think that we are now 50 years plus into this shit, and a deeper, more nuanced and detailed analysis is really beneficial. And I think this, I think this is it.
Yeah. I guess it's, you'll get different recommendations if you have different interests than me. But if you have the exact same brain as me and interest as me, and you have to read one history, like book about role-playing games, this is the one I would pick to delight you.
To delight you. It also, like, this is how I get better at things. But I think many people can benefit from, like, if this is your hobby, if this is your passion, think about it. Think about how it came to be. Think about what you're doing. Engage with it on sort of like an intellectual level, and the elusive shift will help you do that more than many others.
No, I do think there's a, you might get more value for your craft of dungeon mastering than you will learning about like Gary Gygax going to Hollywood and, spending too much money on
that stuff's entertaining,
promoting
and like there's good reasons for that history too. But like, if you want to think about the thing that we're doing more deeply, which I think is a good thing to do, the elusive shift is the place to go. Good recommendation. Good one to end on. Well, those are all the things that delighted. Not I'm
delighted,
things, but many of the
that's
things,
all the things, Rob.
That's it. Nothing else delights me.
You said it. It's canon, Rob. There's this principle in role playing games called it like respecting the fiction. So like we need to what has happened before should guide our practice.
That's right.
So you said that's all the things. That's all the things. We'll never talk about this again.
Thanks for listening, everybody. If you've enjoyed the show, please continue to, if you haven't already, rate and review. If you really like the show and you want to get access to more episodes and support us, head over to patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None. We've also got socials. We've got a Discord where much interesting and vigorous conversation on these topics occurs. So come join us. It's free unless you want access to the hallowed hall of patrons, in which case you do need to be a patron for that. But come check it out.
Thanks everyone for supporting the show, getting us through these 3 episodes, marking our 400th release. It's been a trip back to our regularly scheduled program.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.